Keanu Reeves chose to spend his birthday completely alone. No parties, no friends, just silence. But then, through the pouring rain, desperate cries shattered the quiet. Who was the mysterious child at his gate, drenched and searching for him all day? What this unexpected visitor wanted would change Keanu's life forever. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. Keanu Reeves had always been the kind of person whose birthdays were filled with warmth, laughter, and the presence of those who cared deeply for him. Over the years, he had grown accustomed to celebrations surrounded by close friends, family, and colleagues who wanted to honor the man known for his kindness as much as his craft. But this year, something felt different. For the first time in many years, Keanu made a quiet and deliberate decision to spend his birthday completely alone. It wasn't an impulsive choice, nor one born of sadness or isolation. Rather, it came from a deep place of need, a desire to find peace after a particularly demanding period of his life. Invitations poured in as they always did. Gala events, dinners, surprise parties carefully arranged by his team, and even quiet dinners with longtime friends. Yet, Keanu politely declined them all. His assistant, Maya, was surprised when he informed her. "Keanu, are you sure? Everyone looks forward to celebrating with you," she said gently, concern evident in her voice. Keanu gave a soft, reassuring smile. "I appreciate it, Maya. Truly. But this year I just want a day free from noise, distractions, and expectations. I need time to just be." Maya nodded, knowing that when Keanu made up his mind, it was final. Still, she made a mental note to check in often, ensuring he was truly okay. His closest friends weren't far behind, with calls and messages, worried that this sudden withdrawal might signal deeper loneliness. But Keanu was not lonely. He felt no sadness. Instead, he craved solitude, a rare and precious chance to reflect, to reconnect with himself, and to recharge away from the relentless pace of public life. The past year had been relentless, filming demanding roles, organizing charity events, traveling across continents, and facing the glare of the public eye. Every day was packed with obligations, meetings, and appearances that left little room for quiet contemplation. Keanu recalled a moment 2 weeks earlier during a particularly stressful board meeting for one of his charitable foundations. Surrounded by reports, projections, and decisions, he had felt as if he were on autopilot. His mind longed for escape, for a moment where he could simply breathe without obligation. That fleeting thought grew into a plan: to spend his birthday in quiet solitude, free from the constant demands of being a public figure. He wanted a day without having to perform, to smile on cue, or to be anyone other than himself. Maya helped him cancel all plans discreetly. She ensured invitations were declined politely and told friends that Keanu had chosen to rest. No one pressed too hard. They all trusted his judgment. On the eve of his birthday, Keanu felt a mixture of calm anticipation and unfamiliar nervousness. What would it be like to spend the day completely alone? Would the silence be a balm or a burden? As he prepared for bed, he allowed himself to embrace the unknown with quiet hope. Morning arrived gently. Soft beams of sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow over Keanu's bedroom. For the first time in what felt like ages, he woke naturally, without the shrill buzz of an alarm or the tug of urgent messages. He lay in bed for a moment, savoring the stillness, the absence of schedules or deadlines pressing on his mind. The house was silent, save for the faint chirping of birds and the distant hum of the waking city. Slowly, he rose and made his way to the kitchen. The familiar act of brewing coffee grounded him, its rich aroma filling the air, a small comfort amid the quiet. There was no rush, no meetings to prepare for, no interviews to give, just a simple morning. Keanu settled by the window, cup in hand, watching the gentle movements in his garden. Birds flitted from branch to branch, their songs light and free. A breeze stirred the leaves, and for a moment, time seemed to stretch endlessly. He let his thoughts wander, reflecting on the whirlwind of the past year, the triumphs, the hardships, the moments of joy and the times of quiet struggle. It was a rare chance to process, to connect with feelings he'd pushed aside amid the chaos. His phone lay silent on the table, notifications turned off, messages unread. The digital world had paused, allowing space for real presence. Feeling inspired, Keanu reached for a book that had been on his nightstand for months, a collection of poetry gifted by a close friend. He opened the cover and began to read. The words spoke of hope, loss, resilience, and the human spirit. Each line resonated deeply, weaving threads of comfort and introspection. The morning slipped by, marked only by the turning of pages and the soft sips of coffee. Keanu felt a rare lightness, a connection to the quieter parts of himself, often buried beneath the demands of fame and expectation. He was reminded that life's richness was not always found in grand gestures or public applause, but in these small, unhurried moments of solitude and reflection. The simplicity of the morning, just him, the poetry, and the peaceful world outside, was a gift he hadn't known he desperately needed. After that, he feigned, Cook started coming to him. As midday settled into the quiet house, Keanu moved with unhurried steps to prepare a simple lunch. It wasn't the lavish meals he was often served during busy filming days or at charity events, but a humble sandwich made with care and intention. He sat down at the kitchen table, the sunlight filtering softly through the window, and took the first slow bite. There was something profoundly peaceful in eating without distraction, without the pressure of cameras or schedules looming overhead. For once, he was free to simply be present, to savor the flavors, the textures, and the calmness that filled the room. Time seemed to stretch and slow in a way that felt almost foreign after so many years of constant motion. The clock ticked quietly, but Keanu didn't feel the need to check it. There were no appointments, no calls to answer, no urgent emails demanding immediate attention. Today belonged solely to him. After finishing his meal, he rose and wandered through the house, appreciating the stillness that enveloped every corner. His gaze settled on the workshop tucked away at the back, a place where he often sought refuge from the noise of the outside world. He thought about the small projects he'd started but never finished. There was a vintage clock waiting to be repaired, a wooden model of a motorcycle that needed careful assembly, and a stack of sketches he had been refining. These hobbies weren't about productivity or profit. They were about joy, focus, and a quiet creativity that soothed his spirit. Keanu prepared to retreat to this sanctuary, feeling the familiar pull of the calm it offered. The workshop was a world apart from the spotlight, a place where he could lose himself in the simple act of creation, where time flowed differently, measured by the rhythm of his hands and mind rather than deadlines and demands. He reflected on how much he had longed for this kind of day, a day not defined by public expectation, social obligation, or the relentless pace of celebrity life. A day to recharge, to reconnect with the core of who he was, beyond the roles and responsibilities. As he settled in, tools in hand and a gentle smile touching his lips, Keanu embraced the quiet gift of solitude. He allowed himself to breathe deeply, to focus fully on the small details of his craft. The worries of the world, the pressures of the past year, all seemed to fade away, replaced by a deep, nourishing peace. This birthday, unlike any other, was becoming a moment of healing, a personal gift of rest, reflection, and rediscovery. It was a reminder that even in a life lived so publicly, there was room for private moments that restored the soul. Keanu's heart was calm, his mind clear, and his spirit quietly grateful for the chance to be alone, not lonely, but fully himself. The soft morning light filtered gently through the curtains as Keanu Reeves settled into his favorite chair by the window. In his hands was a book that had been gathering dust for months, a carefully chosen collection of poetry gifted by a dear friend. Until now, his busy schedule had never allowed him the luxury of uninterrupted reading. But today was different. Today, there was nothing pressing to demand his attention. As he opened the book, the scent of aged paper filled the air. Each poem whispered stories of love, loss, hope, and resilience, emotions that resonated deeply with the quiet spaces inside him. He found himself drawn to the rhythmic verses, their simplicity grounding him in a way that scripts and interviews never could. His eyes traced the lines slowly, savoring the cadence of the words as if they were a melody. The poems touched upon the human condition, reminding him of the fragility and strength woven into every life. Keanu's mind, often occupied by the demands of fame and responsibility, began to soften and open. Occasionally, he would close the book to reflect on a particular stanza or phrase, letting the meaning settle. He thought about the moments in his own life, the joys, the setbacks, the quiet triumphs, and how poetry seemed to capture emotions words alone often failed to express. Keanu glanced outside, watching birds flit among the branches and feeling the gentle warmth of the sun on his skin. For a man accustomed to being surrounded by people and noise, the silence was both unfamiliar and precious. The luxury of uninterrupted time was something he hadn't experienced in what felt like years. Phones were silent, messages unanswered, and the world outside paused for just a little while. When hunger reminded him, Keanu rose slowly and moved to the kitchen. He prepared a simple lunch, a sandwich with fresh, wholesome ingredients, and ate it with the same care he gave to his reading. There was no rush, no distractions, just the pleasure of nourishing both body and soul. Between bites, he reflected on how often life's simplest moments were overlooked in favor of bigger, louder, or more urgent things. Today was a reminder that sometimes peace and joy are found in the small and quiet. After lunch, Keanu retreated to a part of his home that few knew well, his personal workshop. The space was filled with the comforting scent of wood shavings and oil, scattered tools and projects both completed and underway. It was a sanctuary where he could escape the glare of public life and reconnect with a different part of himself. He ran his hands over a half-finished wooden model, the grain smoothed beneath his fingertips. Piece by piece, he began assembling delicate components, the precision work drawing his full focus. The repetitive, mindful motion was calming, a form of meditation that grounded him in the present. Nearby sat a vintage clock, its intricate gears exposed and waiting for repair. Keanu carefully removed tiny screws and examined each part, the careful work requiring patience and steady hands. This was not about speed or efficiency. It was about the joy of creation and the satisfaction of restoring something beautiful. The workshop was a world apart from film sets, press junkets, and charity galas. Here, Keanu was just a craftsman, an artist at work, free from expectation. The walls, lined with books, tools, and mementos, held memories of quieter days and simpler pleasures. As he worked, his mind drifted to childhood moments spent in similar pursuits, building models, fixing things around the house, the joy of hands-on creativity. These memories were a balm, a reminder of roots unburdened by fame or pressure. Keanu paused to wipe sweat from his brow, his eyes scanning the room as sunlight shifted through the windows, casting warm, golden light. The calm of the afternoon wrapped around him like a gentle embrace. This solitude was a rare gift, and he embraced it fully. The chance to create without audience or expectation was a profound act of self-care. In these quiet moments, Keanu's humility shone brightest. Despite the world spotlight, it was in this small workshop, among simple tools and unfinished projects, that he found his truest self. The afternoon sun began to shift gently, casting longer shadows across Keanu's workshop. The quiet ticking of the vintage clock filled the space as he carefully aligned tiny gears, his fingers moving with practiced precision. Every little adjustment was a reminder that even the most intricate mechanisms rely on patience and care, much like the moments that stitched together his life. Keanu paused for a moment, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. The room was filled with the warm scent of wood and oil, a comforting aroma that seemed to ground him. He glanced around at the scattered tools, half-finished models and sketches pinned to the walls, each one a testament to hours spent away from the public eye, crafting something with intention and love. He smiled softly to himself. These simple pleasures, tinkering with a wooden model, repairing a clock, turning pages of a forgotten book, were treasures beyond any red carpet or headline. They brought a deep, quiet joy that no applause or recognition could match. For a moment, Keanu allowed his mind to drift back to earlier days, childhood memories of afternoons spent in his father's workshop, the tactile satisfaction of building and fixing. Those experiences had shaped him, teaching patience, focus, and the value of quiet dedication. This afternoon, in the solitude of his workshop, Keanu felt connected to that part of himself that had always loved creating and caring for things with his own hands. It was a side of him rarely seen by the world, but essential to his well-being. As the light softened and the sky outside began to deepen into twilight, Keanu continued working. Each click of the clock, each precise fit of a wooden piece, each thoughtful stroke of his pen on a sketch was a small act of presence, a way to slow down time and savor the moment. The stresses of the past year, the relentless pace of fame and responsibility, seemed to fade away. Here, in this quiet space, he was simply Keanu, a man who found meaning in small, mindful acts. Eventually, he set down his tools and stretched, feeling a deep sense of calm. This day, unlike any before, was a gift. It was a chance to breathe, to reflect, and to restore. Keanu knew that life's true richness was found not just in grand gestures or public success, but in these simple moments of peace and creation. As he prepared to leave the workshop and embrace the coming evening, he carried with him a renewed spirit, a quiet strength born from the joy of solitude and the humble pleasures that had grounded him all his life. The day had slowly given way to evening, and a soft drizzle began to fall, casting a silvery sheen over Keanu Reeves's quiet neighborhood. The rain was gentle at first, barely more than a whisper on the leaves and pavement, but steadily it grew, filling the air with the soothing rhythm of water falling on rooftops and gutters. The sky had turned a muted gray, thick with clouds that muffled the fading light. Outside, the world seemed to slow, the usual bustle replaced by a contemplative stillness that invited quiet reflection. Inside his home, Keanu moved with calm deliberation. The day's solitude had brought him a rare sense of peace, and now, with the rain tapping softly against the windows, the mood deepened into something almost meditative. He busied himself in the kitchen, preparing a simple dinner, nothing elaborate, just a warm bowl of soup and some fresh bread. There was comfort in these humble rituals, a groundedness that came from caring for oneself without distraction or hurry. Keanu settled into the living room. Keanu settled into the familiar embrace of his favorite armchair. The fireplace crackled softly, casting a warm glow that danced across the walls, contrasting with the damp chill pressing against the glass. He wrapped a cozy blanket around his shoulders and opened the poetry book that had captured his thoughts earlier in the day. The verses seemed to flow more freely now, harmonizing with the gentle sound of rain and the flickering flames. As he read, a profound quiet filled the room. The outside world melted away, and for a time there was nothing but the words, the firelight, and the steady beat of his own breathing. Keanu allowed his mind to drift, touching on memories, hopes, and the simple beauty of this rare, unbroken stillness. But then, unexpectedly, the fragile silence was broken. From beyond the safety of his home, a faint sound reached his ears, a soft, desperate crying. At first it was subtle, almost like the wind catching in the trees. yet it grew steadily clearer, carrying a note of anguish that cut through the peaceful evening. The sound was so human, so raw, that it commanded his full attention. Keanu's heart quickened. That crying was no ordinary noise. It held a weight of distress, a silent plea that could not be ignored. Setting aside his book and the comforting glow of the fire, he rose slowly, a quiet urgency stirring within him. The stillness he had sought was now pierced by the unmistakable sound of someone in pain. He moved toward the window and drew back the curtain. Through the rain-speckled glass, the shadows of the garden appeared softened and blurred. The rain pattered steadily now, weaving a veil of moisture that shimmered faintly in the fading light. And then he saw it. A small figure huddled near the front gate. The child was soaked, shivering violently, and wrapped in clothes that looked worn and thin against the chill. The posture was one of exhaustion and fear, shoulders hunched and head bowed against the storm. Without hesitation, Keanu felt a surge of protectiveness rise within him. The solitude of his day had been broken by an unexpected call to compassion. In that moment, the quiet comfort of his home was eclipsed by the urgent need to respond. The boy's sobs grew louder, each one raw and pleading, cutting through the rhythm of the rain. Keanu's breath caught as he watched the child's trembling form. There was a fragility there, a vulnerability that transcended words. The child was soaked through, his clothes plastered to his skin, and his small frame shook with cold and fear. It was clear he had been out in the elements for hours, perhaps longer, searching for something or someone. Keanu moved swiftly but carefully toward the front door, grabbed a sturdy umbrella from the stand, and retrieved a flashlight from a nearby shelf. He wrapped his coat tighter around himself, the chill in the air making his skin prickle. Each step toward the gate was purposeful, his mind racing with questions and concern. As he stepped outside, the steady rain fell over him in sheets, soaking the ground and washing the world in gray. The night air was cool and sharp, but beneath the umbrella's protection, Keanu felt a fierce determination to bring warmth and safety to the shivering figure before him. Drawing closer, he called out softly, "Hey there, are you okay?" The boy looked up, eyes wide and glistening with tears that mingled with raindrops. His face was pale, his lips trembling as he tried to speak. Keanu knelt down, extending the umbrella over the child to shield him from the rain. "I'm here now," Keanu said gently. "Can you tell me your name?" The child swallowed hard, struggling to find his voice. "Diego," he finally whispered, the sound fragile but clear. Keanu's heart tightened. The weight of that name, spoken in the midst of such vulnerability, brought a sudden rush of empathy. Diego's sobs slowed, but his body still shook with cold and exhaustion. "Come with me," Keanu said softly. "Let's get you inside, dry you off, and warm you up." As he led Diego toward the house, the boy clung to the edge of the umbrella, his small hands gripping tightly. Keanu's thoughts raced, trying to understand what had driven this child to his doorstep on such a stormy night. The desperation in Diego's cries was unmistakable. He was searching for something vital, something more than shelter from the rain. Inside, Keanu guided Diego to the bathroom, where warm towels awaited. He helped the boy out of his wet clothes and wrapped him snugly in layers of warmth. Diego's shivers began to subside, replaced by the slow return of color to his cheeks. Keanu prepared a bowl of warm soup and sat with Diego in the living room, the fireplace crackling nearby. The boy clutched the bowl, taking small, careful sips. His eyes were heavy with fatigue, but held a flicker of trust that had not been there moments before. "Where were you out in the rain?" Keanu asked gently, his voice steady and kind. Diego's gaze dropped. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, with a small, trembling breath, he began to speak. The story that unfolded was one of loss, separation, and desperate hope. A tale of a young boy determined to protect someone he loved, no matter the cost. As Diego settled into the warmth of Keanu's home, the rain outside continued its steady fall, drumming softly on the roof like a lullaby. The boy's small body, still trembling from the cold, gradually began to relax under layers of soft towels and blankets. His tear-streaked face slowly found calm in the safety of this unexpected sanctuary. Keanu sat quietly nearby, watching as Diego nursed a warm bowl of soup, the steam curling gently upward in the dim light of the room. The boy's eyes were heavy with exhaustion, but there was a flicker of something else, something fragile and hopeful, nestled beneath the weariness. After a few moments of silence, Diego finally began to speak in a voice barely louder than a whisper. He told Keanu about his little sister, Rosa, a 5-year-old child who was his whole world. They had been separated recently by the foster care system, torn apart in a way that no siblings should ever have to endure. Diego's words spilled out in a rush, full of sorrow and fierce love. He described how Rosa was scared without him, how she had nightmares about their mother, and how she clung to the memories they shared. He spoke of the nights he sang lullabies to her, the games they played to keep hope alive, and the promises he made to protect her no matter what. Keanu listened intently, every word carving a deeper understanding of the boy's pain and determination. It was clear that Diego had been thrust into a role far beyond his years. Not just a brother, but a guardian, a protector, a beacon of comfort for a frightened child. The more Diego spoke, the more Keanu felt the weight of the boy's burden, and the courage it took to carry it. Here was a child who had faced heartbreak and uncertainty with a strength few adults could muster. Diego pulled a crumpled photograph from his pocket, a picture of him and Rosa together, smiling under the sun in a moment of innocence. "That's Rosa," he said, softly, eyes fixed on the image. "I've been trying to find a way to bring her back. We belong together." The photograph told a story of love and connection, a reminder of what had been and what might yet be restored. Keanu's heart ached for the siblings, and a quiet resolve settled within him. He knew that this birthday, meant for solitude and reflection, had taken a turn towards something far more meaningful. As the evening deepened, Diego's energy waned, the toll of his journey weighing heavily on him. Keanu prepared a small bed in the guest room, lining it with soft blankets and pillows. Gently, he helped Diego to bed, tucking the boy in and offering reassurances that he was safe now. Diego's eyes fluttered closed, his breathing slowing as sleep finally claimed him. Keanu stood by the doorway for a moment longer, watching over the boy with a mix of compassion and determination. He understood that this was only the beginning, a journey that would require patience, strength, and unwavering support. But for now, in this quiet house filled with the soft sound of rain and the promise of new beginnings, there was peace. Keanu returned to the living room, settling once more by the fireplace. His thoughts lingered on Diego and Rosa, their story, their bond, and the hope that had carried the boy through the storm. The rain continued to fall, washing away the dust of a long day, cleansing the world outside as a new chapter quietly began inside. Keanu stepped closer to the front gate, his umbrella shielding him from the steady rain that blurred the world around him. Beneath the soft glow of the porch light, a small figure sat huddled against the cold metal bars. His clothes soaked through, hair plastered to his forehead, and shoulders trembling visibly in the chill. The boy looked no older than 8, his face streaked with tears and dirt, eyes wide and filled with fear. Keanu's heart clenched at the sight of such vulnerability in the harsh night. The child's hands clutched his knees tightly, as if trying to hold himself together against the overwhelming cold and sadness. "Hey," Keanu said softly, kneeling a respectful distance away. "Are you all right? What's your name?" The boy didn't answer right away, only hiccuped sobs escaping his lips. The rain whispered a steady rhythm around them, the night silent except for the child's quiet cries. Slowly, The boy's voice broke through the silence. "Diego," he said, his voice fragile and breathless. Keanu nodded gently. "Diego, I'm Keanu. You're safe now. Can you tell me what's wrong?" Diego wiped his face with the sleeve of his soaked jacket and looked up at Keanu with eyes full of desperate hope and exhaustion. "I've been looking for you," he whispered, voice trembling. "All day. I heard about you, the man who helps people." Keanu's brow furrowed slightly. He had never met this boy before. How had Diego come to know about him? What had driven this child to wander in the rain, searching for a stranger in the dark? The rain fell harder, and Keanu felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him. This was no ordinary visitor. Something about Diego's presence tugged at his instincts, the same instincts that had drawn him to a life of quiet kindness, away from the cameras. "Come with me," Keanu said gently, extending his hand beneath the umbrella. "Let's get you out of this rain." Diego hesitated only briefly before taking Keanu's hand, allowing himself to be guided inside the warmth and shelter of the house. As the door closed behind them, the muffled sound of rain gave way to the comforting crackle of the fireplace. Inside, Keanu led Diego to the bathroom, where warm towels awaited. The boy's trembling intensified as the cold seeped from his bones, but Keanu's calm presence was a balm. "Let's get these wet clothes off and dry you up," Keanu said softly, careful to give Diego as much dignity as possible. The boy nodded, eyes wide but trusting. With gentle hands, Keanu helped Diego out of his soaked jacket and shirt, the fabric clinging to the boy's thin frame. Diego flinched at the cold air but relaxed slightly as warm towels were wrapped around him. Keanu fetched a fresh set of clothes, a soft sweater, sweatpants, and thick socks. Diego changed quickly, cheeks flushed from the warmth and attention. Afterwards, Keanu guided Diego to the living room, where a soft blanket and a cozy armchair awaited. The boy curled up, still shivering, but beginning to feel safe. Keanu prepared a bowl of warm soup, its aroma filling the room with comfort. He handed it carefully to Diego, who took it with small, grateful hands. Between spoonfuls, Diego's eyes flickered with a mix of exhaustion and relief. Keanu watched quietly, waiting for the boy to find his voice again. Finally, Diego began to speak. His story unfolded in halting words, revealing a journey marked by loss, fear, and a fierce determination to protect someone dear. He spoke of his little sister, Rosa, a shy 5-year-old separated from him recently by the foster care system. Diego's voice cracked as he described how she struggled without him, how she had nightmares and was afraid of the strangers around her. Keanu listened with growing empathy, understanding that this child carried a weight far beyond his years. Diego's love and responsibility for Rosa were evident in every word, every glance. "I had to find you," Diego said softly. "I heard you help people like us. I didn't know where else to go." Keanu nodded slowly, his heart heavy but full of resolve. This chance encounter was no accident. It was a call to care, to protect, and to fight for what truly mattered. As Diego finished sharing his story, his small frame trembled not just from the cold, but from the weight of all he had endured. His eyes glistened with tears, some fresh, some traces of long-held sorrow. Keanu's heart tightened as he saw the deep reservoirs of pain hidden behind that fragile face. But within that pain, there was also a remarkable spark of resilience, a fierce determination to protect and love his little sister no matter the obstacle. Keanu reached out with steady hands and gently rested his palm on Diego's shoulder. The boy flinched slightly but did not pull away. Instead, he seemed to find some measure of comfort in the simple, grounding gesture. "You're safe here, Diego," Keanu said quietly but firmly. "No matter what's happened, you're not alone now." Diego nodded, wiping a tear away with the back of his hand. His breathing began to slow as the warmth of the room and the kindness surrounding him seeped deeper into his bones. The quiet crackle of the fireplace and the muted patter of rain outside created a cocoon of safety around them. Keanu looked out the window for a moment, watching the rain wash the world clean. The darkness outside felt less daunting now, softened by the glow inside. Here, in this quiet sanctuary, two lives had intersected, one seeking refuge, the other offering hope. The boy's story lingered in Keanu's mind. Diego's love for Rosa, his fierce protectiveness, and his desperate journey through rain and uncertainty moved him deeply. The boy had risked everything for his sister's safety, navigating a harsh and unforgiving system with nothing but hope and love as his guide. Keanu felt a swell of responsibility rising within him. This was more than an unexpected visitor on a rainy night. It was a call to action. He knew that his influence, resources, and compassion could make a difference where bureaucracy and fear often failed. Turning back to Diego, Keanu spoke with quiet determination. "We'll figure this out together. You won't have to face this alone anymore." The boy looked up, a flicker of tentative trust in his eyes. For the first time since arriving, Diego allowed himself a small, weary smile. It was a fragile thing, but it was there. A sign that hope could survive even the darkest nights. Keanu moved to prepare a small bed for Diego in the guest room, laying out fresh blankets and pillows to create a safe, warm space for the boy to rest. He knew that sleep would be elusive at first, haunted by fears and memories, but tonight, at least, Diego could close his eyes without the rain pelting down on him. As Diego settled under the covers, Keanu sat beside him for a moment, offering silent support. The boy's breathing evened, eyelids growing heavy, and the tension in his small body began to ebb. Outside, the rain continued its gentle descent, a steady rhythm that promised renewal. Inside, the warmth grew, not just from the fire or blankets, but from the beginning of a new bond, forged in kindness and trust. Keanu rose quietly and returned to the living room, his mind already racing with thoughts of how to help Diego and Rosa. The path ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges with the foster care system, legal hurdles, and the fragile emotions of two children who had already suffered too much. But Keanu felt ready. This night had transformed from a day of solitary reflection into a mission of compassion. The unexpected visitor at his gate had opened a door to healing, hope, and the quiet power of human connection. As he looked once more toward the window, the rain softened and the first hints of dawn began to lighten the horizon. A new day was coming, and with it, a new beginning for Diego, Rosa, and the man who had chosen to stand beside them. As Diego nestled into the warmth of Keanu's home, his small hands clutched the edges of the blanket tightly. The exhaustion from the day's journey weighed heavily on him, yet something deeper stirred beneath the surface. A need to be heard, to share the story that had brought him to this stranger's doorstep. Keanu sat beside him, his expression soft and attentive, creating a safe space for the boy's words to flow. "Tell me about Rosa," Keanu encouraged gently, his voice steady and kind. Diego took a shaky breath, eyes glistening with tears as memories flooded in. "Rosa is my little sister," he began, voice trembling but determined. "We've always been together, even when things got hard, but recently they took her away from me. The people at the group home said she had to go somewhere else, somewhere far, and I might not see her again." The pain in Diego's voice was palpable, a raw ache that filled the room. Keanu felt his heart tighten. The boy's deep love for Rosa was evident in every word, every pause, heavy with unshed tears. Diego continued, describing how Rosa was scared in the new place, how she didn't speak much and sometimes cried in the middle of the night. "She has nightmares about our mom," he said quietly. "She misses me. She's only 5, and she doesn't understand why we're apart." Keanu listened closely, absorbing every detail. The boy's story painted a picture of innocence shattered by circumstance, and the fierce protective bond between siblings struggling to stay connected. Diego's role as Rosa's guardian became clear. He was more than a brother. He was her anchor, her comfort in a world that felt uncertain and unkind. His determination to keep her safe, to find a way to reunite, was a powerful testament to the resilience of love. Keanu's mind raced with thoughts of how he could help. This was a story he could not ignore, a story of a family torn apart but not broken. As Diego's story continued, his voice grew steadier, fueled by the urgent need to share what weighed so heavily on his young shoulders. He described Rosa with a tenderness and precision that surprised Keanu, a depth of knowledge and affection that revealed the extraordinary role the boy had taken on in her life. "She carries a little stuffed rabbit everywhere," Diego explained, his lips curving into a faint smile despite the tears still glistening in his eyes. "It's the only thing that helps her sleep sometimes. She hugs it tight when she's scared." Keanu listened closely, feeling the boy's love resonate in every word. Diego spoke of Rosa's fears and quirks, the way she preferred her hair braided in a certain way that their mother used to do, how she refused to eat unless her vegetables were arranged in patterns on her plate. These details painted a vivid picture of a child clinging to the remnants of stability in a world turned upside down. "She doesn't like strangers," Diego continued, his voice softening. "She only trusts me. When she's scared, she crawls into my bed and I tell her stories about a magical place where no one ever has to be afraid. That's the only way she falls asleep." Keanu's heart ached at the image of this small boy carrying such responsibility, not just as a sibling, but as Rosa's protector, comforter, and constant presence in her life. Despite being so young himself, Diego had become her anchor. The boy then shared the harsh reality behind their separation. Their mother's battle with addiction had fractured their family, leading to their placement in foster care. For years, Diego and Rosa had stayed together in a group home, their bond a source of strength against the loneliness and uncertainty. But recently, Rosa had been moved to a different foster family, one that, Diego feared, did not understand her needs or her fears. He spoke of his own place in the group home, where he was told he would remain until he was 18 because he was too old for most adopters. Rosa, being younger and smaller, was seen as more adoptable. "That's why they separated us," Diego said quietly, a tremor of anger and sadness in his voice. "I don't care if I never get adopted, I just want Rosa to be safe and happy, but she needs me." Keanu felt the weight of those words, heavy with a child's love and sacrifice. Diego's devotion was unwavering. His hope focused solely on reuniting with his sister and protecting her from a world that had already been too harsh. Keanu reached out, squeezing the boy's hand gently. "You're doing an incredible job," he said sincerely. "Rosa is lucky to have you looking out for her." Diego's eyes brightened slightly at the reassurance, but the fear and uncertainty lingered beneath the surface. He didn't know how to fix the complicated system that had separated them, but he had come to Keanu with the hope that someone could help. Keanu sat quietly, thinking deeply about the challenges ahead. This was more than a simple act of kindness. It was a call to fight for family, for love, for hope, where it had been nearly lost. The room fell into a gentle silence as Diego rested his head against the back of the chair, eyes distant but full of longing. Keanu watched the boy carefully, knowing this fragile moment was a crossroads between despair and possibility. Diego began to share more about Rosa's daily life, the routines and rituals he had come to understand so intimately. "She wakes up slow. If you try to hurry her, she gets upset and won't talk for a while," he explained. "She likes to brush her teeth with the purple toothbrush, not any other color. Purple is her favorite." The details revealed a child who had become an expert in comforting another, learning every small preference that brought Rosa peace. "She needs someone to check under her bed for monsters before she goes to sleep," Diego said with a small, sad smile. "And she says goodnight to her stuffed animals in a special order, Rabbit first, then bear, then elephant. If you mess it up, she has to start over. Yanso thinks back to all of us. Mom, what swerved you off? I stuttered at my speeches, then started over. Keanu was struck by the depth of care and patience Diego displayed, skills far beyond what most children his age possessed. It was a heavy burden, one born from love, but also necessity. Diego's voice grew softer as he spoke about the emotional scars their family carried. She still remembers when Mom was sick. She needs to hear that she's loved, every day, sometimes lots of times. I tell her that I love her more than anything in the world, even when she's being cranky. The boy's understanding of Rosa's needs went beyond physical care. It was a profound emotional bond that sought to heal wounds no doctor could mend. Keanu felt humbled by the maturity and devotion woven into Diego's every word. As Diego spoke, memories of his own childhood struggles surfaced. His long hours on film sets, the pressure of public life, contrasted sharply with this intimate moment of raw humanity. Keanu's determination to help these siblings grow stronger with every breath. The boy shared stories of their time in foster care, the hospital visits when Rosa was ill, his refusal to leave her side despite being told he was too young to stay. The nurses finally let me stay because Rosa kept asking for me, Diego said, his voice thick with emotion. She felt better when I held her hand. Keanu could see the weight of that responsibility, the selflessness that had shaped Diego's young life. You've done more for Rosa than most adults could, Keanu assured him, eyes full of admiration. Your love is the most important thing she has. Diego smiled faintly, comforted but still carrying the heavy question of what the future held. Keanu knew the challenges ahead would be many, but in this moment there was hope, a fragile but real light that promised a better path. The night deepened around them, but inside, a new chapter had begun, a story of courage, family, and the quiet power of love to overcome even the darkest odds. The quiet of the living room was broken only by the gentle crackling of the fireplace as Diego reached slowly into the pocket of his damp jacket. With trembling fingers, he pulled out a crumpled photograph, the edges worn and creased from countless times it had been folded and unfolded. He held it out to Keanu, with a tentative hope shining in his eyes. "This is Rosa," Diego said softly, voice thick with emotion. The photo showed a small girl with bright, curious eyes and a shy, sweet smile. She had curly hair that framed her face in soft waves, and in the picture she sat beside Diego on a park bench, their hands nearly touching, their closeness radiating warmth and love. Keanu took the photograph carefully, studying the image of the siblings together. He saw not just two children, but a bond forged through hardship, a connection that neither time nor separation could break. The photo was a tangible symbol of everything Diego was fighting for, the hope that they could be reunited and remain together despite the challenges ahead. Diego's eyes glistened as he watched Keanu's face. "I keep this with me," he said. "It's all I have that reminds me of us. When I'm scared or lonely, I look at it and remember that she's out there." Then, from another pocket, Diego pulled out something else, a folded piece of paper, roughly drawn and filled with childish handwriting and simple sketches. Keanu recognized it immediately as a map. But it was no ordinary map. This was a carefully crafted plan, a lifeline created by children who had come together to help one of their own. "They made this for me," Diego explained, voice gaining strength as he traced the lines with his finger. "The other kids at the group home helped me draw it. It shows where I should look, the streets to follow, and the places where people said you might live." Keanu unfolded the paper fully and saw a series of winding roads, marked with landmarks like a gas station, a park, and several houses with tall gates. There were notes scribbled in large letters. "Ask here, big house, kind man helps people." It was a map of hope and desperation, drawn with innocence and determination. The children had pieced together what little information they had and turned it into a guide to find Keanu, a man they believed could help. Keanu studied the map closely, feeling the weight of the journey it represented. This simple, hand-drawn guide told a story far greater than its lines and words. It was a testament to Diego's courage and the lengths he had gone to in search of help. Diego continued, his voice steady now despite his fatigue. I started walking early this morning. I didn't know exactly where to go, but I knew I had to try. The rain didn't stop me, even though I got soaked and cold. He paused, swallowing hard, then added, I knocked on lots of doors. Most people told me to go away or called me a runaway. Some gave me snacks, but no one knew where you lived, until a lady at the store said there was a man who helps kids, and she gave me directions. Keanu's eyes filled with admiration for the boy's bravery. Walking for hours alone, facing rejection and cold, with nothing but hope and a fragile map to guide him, it was a journey that would break many adults. Yet, here was Diego, pressing forward. The map itself was a patchwork of children's handwriting and illustrations, scrawled with the urgency of those who had little time to lose. Landmarks were noted with crude drawings, a tall gas pump here, a barking dog there. Some names were misspelled, others barely legible, but the message was clear. These kids helped me because they believed you could help us, Diego said softly. They told me not to give up. I wanted to find you and ask for help to keep Rosa safe. Keanu's heart swelled with a mixture of sorrow and hope. This map was more than just directions. It was a symbol of trust, faith, and the desperate need for someone to step in and protect what mattered most. As he carefully folded the map, Keanu reflected on the innocence behind this desperate plan. It was the pure hope of children who had learned to rely on each other in a world that often seemed harsh and unkind. The map and photo together were silent pleas for connection and rescue, and Keanu understood that his role now was to turn that hope into reality. Diego looked up at Keanu, his eyes wide and shimmering with a mixture of exhaustion and fragile hope. The boy's voice was barely above a whisper, trembling with the weight of his journey and the emotions that had been held tight for so long. I've been so scared, he admitted, voice cracking slightly. But I knew I had to try. Rosa needs me, and I had to find someone who could help. Keanu felt a surge of emotion swell in his chest, a fierce protectiveness mingled with deep respect for this child's bravery. Here was a boy who had walked for miles through rain and rejection, driven by nothing more than love and a desperate hope to keep his sister safe. It was a courage far beyond his years, a resilience forged in hardship and fueled by unbreakable bonds. You've done something incredible, Diego, Keanu said gently, his voice steady but full of feeling, not just by coming here tonight, but by holding on to hope when everything else seemed impossible. That hope is powerful. It's what will help you and Rosa through this. Diego's lips curled into a tentative, weary smile, the first sign of light since he had arrived at Keanu's gate. The soft glow of the firelight bathed the room in warmth, contrasting with the chill still lingering in the boy's bones. For a moment, the weight of his fears seemed to lift, replaced by a fragile sense of safety. Outside, the rain softened to a gentle mist, the relentless downpour easing as if the storm itself acknowledged the quiet miracle unfolding within these walls. The night air was heavy with promise, the kind that whispers of new beginnings, even in the darkest hours. Keanu reached out, placing a firm yet comforting hand on Diego's shoulder. We're going to do everything we can to make sure you and Rosa stay together, he said with quiet determination. You won't have to face this alone anymore. Diego's eyes locked onto Keanu's, searching for truth in those words. Seeing the sincerity reflected back at him, the boy nodded slowly, the hope taking root more firmly in his heart. It was a small victory, but an important one. A flicker of light in a long night. Keanu stood and moved toward the window, gazing out at the world washed clean by rain. The house was filled with a stillness that felt sacred, a pause between what had been and what could be. He thought of the difficult days ahead, the battles with bureaucracy, and the fragile emotions of two children who had already suffered too much. But for now, there was a moment of peace, a chance to gather strength and prepare. Turning back to Diego, Keanu smiled gently. "Try to get some rest," he said softly. "Tomorrow, we start working on bringing your family back together." Diego settled into the small bed prepared for him, pulling the blankets up to his chin. His eyes grew heavy, the exhaustion finally claiming him. As he drifted into sleep, his face relaxed, the tension eased, and the fragile thread of hope grew stronger. Keanu watched for a moment longer, feeling the quiet courage of this boy, a courage born not of innocence alone, but of fierce love and relentless determination. The night held its breath, and inside, a new chapter quietly began. The house felt warmer now, the soft glow of the kitchen lights casting gentle shadows on the walls. Keanu moved quietly, preparing a simple meal for Diego, a bowl of warm soup with fresh bread and a glass of juice. The smell of the food filled the room with comfort, a small refuge from the storm that had raged outside. Diego watched him silently for a moment, still fragile but slowly gaining strength. The boy's eyes flickered with a mix of curiosity and caution, as if weighing whether this stranger could be trusted. Keanu smiled gently, trying to convey that this was a safe place, a place where stories could be shared without judgment. As Keanu sat down beside him, the boy hesitated, but finally took a small spoonful of soup. The warmth seemed to thaw some of the fear still clinging to him. Slowly, Diego began to speak again, his voice steadier now. He described Rosa, her shy smile, the way she loved to sing quietly when she thought no one was listening, and her fascination with collecting pretty rocks that she kept carefully in a shoebox she called her treasure chest. Diego's face lit up as he spoke of these small joys, revealing a tender glimpse of the little girl behind the fears and struggles. "She's scared of thunderstorms," Diego explained. "When they happen, she hides under the bed, and I have to find her and hold her hand until it's over." The boy's voice carried a maturity that belied his years, a deep emotional intelligence shaped by necessity and love. He spoke not just as a brother, but as a caregiver who had learned to read Rosa's needs and fears with precision. Keanu listened intently, his heart heavy with admiration and resolve. This was a child who had grown up too fast, taking on burdens no one his age should bear. Yet Diego spoke with a quiet strength, fueled by a fierce determination to protect the sister he loved more than anything. Their conversation unfolded slowly, like the pages of a book revealing the depths of a complex and touching story. Diego spoke of bedtime rituals, how Rosa needed her stuffed rabbit placed just so, and how she insisted on saying goodnight to each of her toys in a special order. He told Keanu about the songs he sang to calm her fears and the stories he made up to help her dream of a better, safer world. Keanu felt a surge of emotion with every word. This boy had created a world of love and safety within the chaos of their lives, a sanctuary built from hope and devotion. As the meal wound down, Diego's energy began to wane, but his desire to share never faltered. He spoke with quiet determination about the times Rosa had been hospitalized. "She got pneumonia once," he said softly, voice thick with emotion. "I stayed with her every night, even when the nurses said I was too young. But she kept asking for me. Finally, they said I could stay because she felt better when I held her hand." Keanu's admiration deepened with each word. This was no ordinary child. Diego had stepped into the role of protector and parent when he himself was still a kid. He carried the weight of responsibility with a maturity far beyond his years, fueled by love and an unyielding resolve. "I want to make sure she's safe," Diego said with quiet urgency. "Even if that means I have to keep fighting." Keanu nodded solemnly, understanding the enormity of the fight ahead. The foster care system was complicated and often unyielding. Legal battles, bureaucratic obstacles, and emotional strain would challenge them all. Yet in Diego's voice was a hope that could not be extinguished, a belief that love might just be strong enough to change their fate. The boy described Rosa's routines with tenderness, the way she liked to wake slowly, how she needed her purple toothbrush, and the nightly ritual of saying goodnight to her stuffed animals in a precise order. These details painted a portrait of a little girl clinging to comfort in an unfamiliar world. Diego explained how Rosa was shy and scared of strangers, only trusting him. When she had nightmares, she sought him out for comfort. His stories revealed a profound understanding of her emotional needs, something he had learned to navigate instinctively. Keanu felt the enormity of this sibling bond, how Diego's presence was the foundation of Rosa's fragile sense of security. It was a testament to the power of love, resilience, and sacrifice. With the night pressing on, Keanu turned his attention to action. He picked up the phone, dialing numbers with determination. Social workers, group home managers, family court officials. Each call was made with the purpose of weaving together a path for Diego and Rosa to reunite. Keanu advocated with calm persistence, explaining the situation in detail, requesting meetings, and offering to provide whatever support was needed. He promised to stand by these children through every step, ready to use all his resources and connections. Diego listened quietly, his tired eyes flickering with cautious hope. The boy knew the road ahead was uncertain, but the presence of someone willing to fight for them kindled a light in the darkness. Keanu's calls reflected the weight of the situation, but also his unshakable resolve. He was ready to navigate the difficult maze of systems and rules to protect these two vulnerable children. When the last call ended, Keanu leaned back in his chair, the magnitude of responsibility settling over him like a heavy cloak. He glanced toward the guest room, where Diego lay sleeping peacefully, the steady rhythm of the boy's breath a stark contrast to the storm of challenges awaiting them. This night of stories and planning had revealed not just the harsh realities Diego and Rosa faced, but the incredible strength of their bond. A bond that had carried them through separation, fear, and uncertainty. Keanu thought back on Diego's tales, the hospital nights, the careful routines, the rituals of comfort and reassurance. It was a glimpse into a world where childhood was overshadowed by adult burdens, and where love was the only true constant. He knew the path to reunification would be difficult. Legal battles loomed, foster care protocols were rigid, and the emotional scars ran deep. But the love between these siblings was a force greater than any obstacle. The night was quiet now, save for the gentle crackling of the fire and the distant sounds of the city settling to sleep. Inside the house, hope had taken root. Keanu whispered a promise to the sleeping boy. "We're going to get you and Rosa home. Together." In the early hours, as dawn hinted at the horizon, Keanu sat by the window, contemplating the days to come. This unexpected visitor had changed everything, turning a quiet birthday into a mission of heart and humanity. With renewed purpose, he prepared himself to fight, not just for two children, but for the idea that family, love, and hope could overcome even the toughest trials. The journey ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Diego's courage had sparked a flame that would not be extinguished. Diego settled deeper into the soft chair, the room bathed in a gentle evening light. His face, still marked by fatigue, held a quiet intensity as he began to speak about Rosa, the little sister who depended on him for more than just love. "She makes these little things she does every night to feel safe," Diego said softly, his voice carrying the weight of responsibility that few children his age would understand. "Before she goes to sleep, she needs her stuffed rabbit right next to her. It's like her guardian, I think." Keanu nodded attentively, sensing the importance behind these small rituals. They weren't just habits, They were lifelines, fragile threads woven to hold together a child's sense of security in a world that often felt unpredictable. Diego continued, "She has a special way she says goodnight to her toys, too. First the rabbit, then the bear, and then the elephant. If you get the order wrong, she starts all over again." Keanu smiled softly, touched by the vividness of the picture Diego painted. In those routines, Diego revealed not only Rosa's fears, but his own role in helping her feel safe. A role he had stepped into without hesitation. "But she's scared sometimes," Diego admitted, his voice faltering. "She doesn't like strangers. When there's a thunderstorm, she hides under the bed, and I have to find her and hold her hand until it's over." The boy's eyes clouded with memories of those fearful nights. Yet beneath the fear was a fierce love, an unyielding determination to protect his sister from harm, even when the world seemed too harsh. Keanu could feel the boy's burden, the way he had become a guardian long before he was ready. It was a role born out of necessity, but carried with a grace that inspired profound respect. Diego's stories went beyond comfort rituals. They revealed a deep emotional intelligence, a capacity for empathy and care that many adults would find remarkable. He spoke of the countless nights spent soothing Rosa's nightmares, whispering stories of magical places where children never had to be afraid. These moments were a sanctuary from pain, a place where love triumphed over fear. As Diego shared, Keanu saw the profound impact of their separation, the void it left in both their lives, and the strength it took for Diego to hold the family together. Diego's voice grew steadier as he described the hospital stays, the nights when Rosa was sick and he refused to leave her side. "She got really sick once," he said quietly. "I stayed in a chair by her bed for 3 nights. The nurses said I was too young to be there, but Rosa kept asking for me." Keanu listened intently, his heart aching for the sacrifices this boy had made. It was clear Diego had become more than a brother. He was a caregiver, a protector, and a constant presence in Rosa's life. "The doctor finally said I could stay," Diego continued, "because Rosa seemed better when I held her hand." The image of that small boy standing vigil by his sister's bedside, against all odds, was a powerful testament to the depth of their bond. Diego then spoke of their routines, the games they played to keep hope alive. "We have a game called Family Dreams," he explained. "We take turns saying what we want our family to be like when we grow up." Rosa's dreams were simple but heartfelt. A house with a big kitchen for baking cookies, a yard with swings to play in every day. Through their shared imagination, they created a world where love and stability could exist despite the chaos around them. Yet Diego's greatest fear was the separation itself, the thought of being apart from Rosa, unable to protect her or comfort her. "I don't care if I never get adopted," he said fiercely. "I just want Rosa to be safe and happy. She needs me." Keanu felt the weight of those words, a child's love profound enough to defy the harsh realities of their situation. He reached out, placing a gentle hand on Diego's. "You're doing an amazing job," Keanu said. "Rosa is lucky to have you." The boy's eyes shimmered with a mix of pride and vulnerability, the immense responsibility he carried evident in every breath. Keanu knew the road ahead would be difficult. The foster care system was complex and often unsympathetic, but Diego's unwavering love was a force that could not be ignored. As the quiet night stretched on, Diego's voice softened, carrying a gentle weight that only grew heavier with each passing moment. The exhaustion that came from holding so much in his small frame was visible in his eyes, yet his words remained clear and filled with the fierce love he bore for Rosa. "She only feels safe with me," Diego whispered, his voice barely breaking the stillness of the room. "When she's scared or sad, she crawls into my bed. I tell her stories about a magical place, a place where no one ever gets left behind. It's the only way she can sleep sometimes." Keanu watched him closely, moved beyond words by the depth of this child's devotion. Here was a boy who had become much more than a sibling. Diego had assumed the role of guardian, comforter, and protector all at once. His love for Rosa was fierce and unwavering, a steady light in the darkness that surrounded them both. The boy's eyes flickered with a mixture of hope and sorrow as he continued. "I know she misses Mom. Sometimes she cries because she remembers when things were hard. But I tell her she's safe now and that I'm always here. I try to be strong for her because she can't be." Keanu's heart ached with empathy. The responsibilities Diego had taken on were enormous for someone so young. Yet the boy spoke with a maturity and tenderness that spoke volumes about the bond they shared. A bond forged through hardship, love, and an unbreakable commitment to each other. Diego's voice wavered slightly as he recounted the nights when Rosa had nightmares. "When she wakes up crying, I hold her tight and tell her stories about a place where families stay together, where no one ever gets lost or left behind. Sometimes she falls asleep in my arms." The image was powerful and poignant, a child playing the role of parent, offering love and security in a world that had been anything but safe. Diego had become Rosa's anchor, the one constant in her turbulent life. Keanu could see the emotional toll this had taken on Diego. The boy's face, though weary, radiated a strength born of necessity. Every story he shared was a testament to the sacrifices he had made and the depths of his love. The conversation turned toward the painful reality of their separation. The day Rosa was taken away and placed in a different foster home. Diego's voice cracked as he recalled how that moment had shattered them both. "They said Rosa could have a new family because she's little and cute," Diego explained, frustration and sadness mingling in his tone. "But they said I was too old, so I have to stay here until I'm 18. Keanu nodded, understanding the heartbreaking logic that often dictated these decisions, a system focused on statistics and policies rather than the emotional bonds that truly mattered. "I don't care about being adopted," Diego said firmly. "I just want Rosa to be safe and happy. She needs me. I have to make sure she's okay. Even if it means fighting forever." Keanu reached out and gently squeezed Diego's hand. "You've done an incredible job," he said softly. "Your love and care for Rosa are what really matter. That kind of love can't be measured by age or rules." Diego's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time since arriving, they shone with a glimmer of hope. He knew the road ahead would be tough, but with someone like Keanu willing to fight alongside him, the impossible suddenly seemed a little more possible. As the fire flickered and the night deepened, Keanu sat beside Diego, offering silent comfort and the unspoken promise that they would do everything possible to reunite this family torn apart by circumstance. In that quiet room, under the soft glow of the lamp, a new chapter quietly began, one defined by courage, love, and the unwavering belief that family could endure even the greatest trials. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains as Keanu sat at his desk, the quiet of the house broken only by the faint tapping of his keyboard. He was deep into researching the foster care system, its rules, its bureaucracy, and the complex web of legal processes that govern the lives of children like Diego and Rosa. Each phone call he made uncovered another layer of complexity. Social workers explained that while keeping siblings together was a priority, it was often difficult in practice. Sometimes different needs, placement availability, and court decisions meant children were separated. Keanu learned about court hearings, background checks, and the extensive paperwork that social workers and legal guardians had to manage. The system, designed to protect children, was often slow-moving and rigid, leaving families caught in frustrating limbo. He also discovered how each case was unique, influenced by local policies, judges' discretion, and the availability of suitable foster homes. The weight of these realities pressed down on him, revealing just how challenging the path to reunification would be. Despite the daunting information, Keanu's determination only grew stronger. This wasn't just a legal battle, it was about preserving the precious bond between two siblings who had already endured so much separation and loss. He reflected on Diego's courage, the boy's unwavering love and responsibility for Rosa, and the urgent need to fight for their future together. Keanu vowed silently that no amount of red tape or delay would stop him from advocating fiercely on their behalf. Every phone call became a step toward building a network of support, reaching out to child advocates, legal experts, and community resources. Keanu was learning fast, but knew that the most important element was persistence. He promised himself that he would be the voice these children desperately needed, a voice strong enough to navigate the legal maze and compassionate enough to honor their humanity. Later that afternoon, Keanu sat across from Diego, whose young face bore the fatigue of their long day, but still held a quiet strength. The boy's dark eyes searched Keanu's with a mixture of anxiety and hope. "Diego," Keanu began softly, "I've learned a lot about what we're facing. The foster care system wants what's best for kids like you and Rosa, but it's also full of rules and challenges that make things complicated." Diego listened intently, his expression serious as he took in the reality of the situation. "So, it might take a long time?" he asked quietly. Keanu nodded. "Yes, sometimes it can take longer than we want. But that doesn't mean we won't get there. I promise you, I'm going to fight for you both. We will do everything possible to help you stay together." The boy's face softened at those words, a spark of hope lighting up his tired eyes. "You really mean that?" he whispered. "I do," Keanu said firmly, reaching out to gently squeeze Diego's hand. "You're not alone in this anymore." Keanu explained the next steps, the meetings with social workers, the court hearings, and the paperwork that would need to be completed. He spoke honestly but reassuringly, emphasizing that patience and persistence would be their greatest tools. Diego nodded, his faith buoyed by Keanu's unwavering commitment. He realized that while the road ahead was uncertain and fraught with obstacles, he now had an ally who understood their struggle and was willing to stand by them. Together, they began to outline a plan, making calls, scheduling appointments, and gathering the necessary documents. Keanu promised to keep Diego informed every step of the way, ensuring the boy never felt forgotten or powerless. Their conversation was a bridge, a connection built on trust, empathy, and shared purpose. It was a moment of quiet strength before the challenges of tomorrow. As the evening deepened outside the window, Diego sat quietly by the soft glow of the lamp, his gaze fixed on the fading light of the day. The weight of the world seemed momentarily lifted from his small shoulders, replaced by a fragile but growing sense of hope. Keanu's promise echoed in his mind, a promise to fight for him and Rosa, to navigate the tangled legal path ahead, and to never let them face this alone. Diego's heart beat a little lighter, knowing someone cared deeply enough to stand by them, to challenge the cold bureaucracy that threatened to keep them apart. The road would be long and the obstacles many, but with Keanu's support, the impossible began to feel possible. Keanu watched the boy closely, sensing the mixture of fear, exhaustion, and determination flickering across his face. The journey ahead was daunting, filled with courtrooms, social workers, and legal battles that could last months or even years. But tonight, in this quiet room, there was a moment of peace, an unspoken agreement that they would face it together. The promise to reunite Diego and Rosa was not a simple one. Keanu knew the system could be slow, sometimes indifferent, and often complicated by rules that prioritized procedure over people. Yet, he also knew the power of persistence, compassion, and unwavering advocacy. With a quiet resolve, Keanu stood and moved toward the window, gazing out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. The world outside seemed vast and overwhelming, but inside this home, a fierce determination had taken root. Turning back to Diego, Keanu's voice softened. "This is just the beginning, but I want you to know something very important. You and Rosa mean everything, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure you're together again. No matter how hard it gets, We won't give up. Diego looked up, eyes shimmering with tears. Tears of relief, gratitude, and the faintest glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. "I believe you," he whispered. "Thank you for not giving up on us." Keanu smiled gently, feeling the weight of that trust. "We're a team now, and teams don't give up on each other." The boy's breathing slowed as exhaustion finally claimed him, his small frame relaxing into the comfort of the bed prepared for him. Keanu sat nearby for a while longer, reflecting on the enormity of the fight ahead and the extraordinary courage of this child. Outside, the night stretched on, filled with quiet promise. The journey toward reunification would be difficult, but with love as their guide and hope as their anchor, Keanu and Diego would face it head-on. Together they held on to a simple truth, that family was worth every battle, every hardship, and every step of the way. The soft light of morning filtered through the curtains as Keanu sat at the kitchen table, a quiet hum of the waking city beyond the windows. His fingers hovered over his phone, thoughts heavy with the complexities of Diego and Rosa's situation. The legal battles ahead seemed daunting, but Keanu was determined to face them head-on. Suddenly, the phone rang, breaking the silence. It was his attorney. With a steady breath, Keanu answered, sensing the weight of what was to come. "Keanu," the attorney began, voice calm but urgent, "I have significant news regarding Diego and Rosa's case. Their mother has successfully completed a rehabilitation program and is now petitioning the court to regain custody of her children." The words washed over Keanu with a mix of relief and cautious hope. This unexpected development altered the entire landscape of the case. The possibility of reuniting the siblings with their mother, once distant and uncertain, was now real and within reach. The attorney detailed the mother's progress: 8 months of sobriety, stable housing, and steady employment. The caseworker overseeing her had expressed confidence in her commitment to change and readiness to care for Diego and Rosa. However, Keanu knew this was only the beginning of a challenging process. The court would carefully evaluate the petition, considering the mother's rehabilitation alongside the children's best interests. The weight of responsibility settled on Keanu anew. While this breakthrough brought hope, it also meant preparing for legal scrutiny, meetings, and emotional upheaval. Still, Keanu felt a renewed sense of purpose. He pledged to leverage every resource, connection, and ounce of determination to support this family through the uncertain journey ahead. This call marked a pivotal turning point, not just for the case, but for Diego and Rosa's chance at a true home. Later that afternoon, Keanu sat quietly with Diego in the living room. The boy's dark eyes reflected a mixture of weariness and anticipation, emotions swirling beneath his calm exterior. "Diego," Keanu began gently, "I have some news from the attorney about your mom." Diego's gaze sharpened, curiosity and apprehension knitting his brow. "Your mom has completed her rehabilitation program and is petitioning the court to have you and Rosa back with her." Keanu explained carefully, watching for Diego's reaction. A flicker of light sparked in Diego's eyes, a fragile hope emerging from months of uncertainty. "She wants us back?" he whispered, voice trembling with disbelief and cautious optimism. "Yes," Keanu confirmed. "But there will be steps to take. There will be meetings, evaluations, and decisions to be made. It's a process, and it may take some time, but I promise I'll be here to help every step of the way." Diego nodded slowly, absorbing the complex emotions, hope, excitement, fear, and doubt. "I'm happy, but also scared," he admitted quietly. "What if things don't work out? What if she changes her mind or can't care for us?" Keanu reached out, his hand steadying Diego's small shoulder. "It's okay to be scared. This is a big change, and it's normal to feel nervous. But you're not alone. We'll face everything together. You and Rosa deserve to be safe and loved, no matter what." Tears welled in Diego's eyes, emotions too complex for words. Hope battled anxiety, but for the first time in a long time, hope held sway. They talked about the next steps, preparing for meetings with social workers, gathering documents, and attending court hearings. Keanu assured Diego that he would advocate fiercely, never letting them be forgotten in the process. The conversation was more than informational. It was a lifeline, a bridge of trust that gave Diego a renewed strength to face the uncertain road ahead. As evening deepened outside the window, Diego sat quietly in the soft glow of a lamp, the photo of Rosa clutched gently in his hands. The warmth from the room contrasted sharply with the chill of the uncertain future he now faced. His mind swirled with a mix of emotions: hope, anxiety, excitement, and fear. For so long, the separation from Rosa had felt like an insurmountable wall. But now, with Keanu's promise and the breakthrough in their case, that wall seemed a little less daunting. Diego's eyes traced the familiar face of his sister in the photograph, a reminder of the bond that had kept him going through the darkest days. He thought about the nights he had spent worrying about her safety, the fears he carried for her well-being in a strange new home. Now, there was a possibility, a real chance, that they might be together again. Keanu watched silently from across the room, sensing the complex emotions playing across the boy's face. This moment, quiet and still, held the weight of everything they had fought for: the promise of family, the hope for stability, the yearning for love and connection. It was more than just a legal battle. It was about healing wounds that ran deep and rebuilding a life that had been torn apart. Though the road ahead was uncertain and would undoubtedly hold challenges, this breakthrough call had illuminated a path forward. It was a chance to rewrite a story that had been filled with loss and separation into one of reunion and hope. Keanu moved closer, speaking softly. "This is just the beginning, Diego. There will be hard days ahead, and sometimes it might feel overwhelming. But remember, you're not alone. We'll face every step together." The boy nodded slowly, his breathing steadying as a fragile calm settled over him. "I want to believe everything will be okay," he whispered. "I want to believe that one day soon, Rosa and I will be home again." Keanu smiled gently. "And that day will come. We'll make sure of it." The night stretched on, the quiet filled with unspoken promises and the determination of two souls bound by love and resilience. Outside, the city lights twinkled like distant stars, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is light to be found. Together, they prepared to face the journey ahead, armed with hope, courage, and an unbreakable bond that no system or circumstance could sever. The house was still, but within its walls, a story of love and perseverance quietly unfolded, one that would change the lives of Diego and Rosa forever. The days that followed brought a whirlwind of activity, yet amidst it all, Keanu remained a steady presence for Diego. Knowing the importance of a stable environment for the siblings, Keanu began organizing counseling sessions to help both children process their trauma and prepare for the emotional challenges ahead. He reached out to trusted therapists who specialized in childhood trauma and family reunification. These professionals would provide Diego and Rosa with the tools to heal and rebuild trust, not only with each other, but also with their mother. Keanu understood that counseling was not just about addressing the past, but about building a foundation for the future. He wanted Diego to feel safe expressing his fears and hopes, and to know that his feelings mattered deeply. Alongside the emotional support, Keanu prioritized securing stable housing for the family. He connected with social service agencies and community organizations to identify safe and nurturing places where Diego, Rosa, and their mother could live comfortably and securely. His efforts extended to arranging educational support and healthcare services, ensuring the children's physical and developmental needs would be met as their family life began to rebuild. Keanu knew that the road to reunification would require more than love and desire. It would take resources, planning, and consistent support to create a home where healing could truly take place. Throughout this process, Diego watched the flurry of arrangements with a mixture of curiosity and cautious optimism. The promise of a fresh start stirred emotions he hadn't fully allowed himself to feel before. Diego's feelings were complex. Hope wove tightly with anxiety, excitement tangled with fear. He longed to be reunited with Rosa and their mother, but worried about what that reunion might bring. Keanu noticed these conflicting emotions and took time to sit with Diego, encouraging him to share his thoughts openly. "It's okay to feel scared," Keanu reassured him. "Reunions aren't always easy, even when they're what we want most. Sometimes things feel uncertain, and that's normal." Diego nodded, his eyes reflecting the weight of the unknown. What if Mom isn't the same? What if Rosa and I don't fit back in? Keanu smiled gently. Change is hard for everyone, but with the right support, you'll find your way together. And no matter what, you'll always have people who care about you. Me included. They talked about the counseling ahead, the safe home being prepared, and the people ready to help. Keanu emphasized that this was a team effort, and Diego wouldn't be facing anything alone. The boy's face softened, hope shining through the haze of uncertainty. He realized that while the future was unknown, he had an advocate who believed in him and his family's potential to heal. Keanu also made sure to prepare Diego for practical details, the meetings with social workers, the visits to the new home, and the gradual steps toward reunification. He wanted Diego to feel empowered, not overwhelmed. In these conversations, Keanu's humility and compassion shone. He did not offer empty promises, but instead honest support, rooted in action and empathy. The process was slow and careful, but with each step, Diego's confidence grew, and the possibility of family unity became more tangible. As the days passed, the framework for Diego and Rosa's new life began to take shape. Counseling appointments were confirmed with compassionate therapists who specialized in helping children rebuild after trauma. Keanu made sure these sessions would provide a safe space for both children to express their fears, hopes, and frustrations without judgment or pressure. The housing arrangements progressed steadily. Keanu worked closely with social workers and community agencies to secure a comfortable, welcoming home that could accommodate the family's needs. It was not just about walls and a roof, but about creating an environment filled with warmth, stability, and care. Something both Diego and Rosa had long been denied. Keanu took time to explain all these preparations to Diego, wanting him to feel involved and reassured. He understood how overwhelming it could be to face so many changes all at once. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Keanu spoke softly. "Diego, all these steps are being taken so that you, Rosa, and your mom can have a real chance to be together. A home where you can grow, feel safe, and be loved." Diego listened quietly, a mixture of hope and lingering uncertainty in his eyes. "I want that," he said, his voice steady but honest. "But what if things don't work out? What if we get hurt again?" Keanu reached over, placing a steady hand on Diego's. "It's okay to be scared. What you've been through isn't easy to forget, and healing takes time. But this time, you won't be alone. We're building a team around you to make sure you're supported every step of the way." He reminded Diego that love wasn't just about being together physically. It was about having people who cared deeply and would help carry the hard parts. The therapists, social workers, and community members were there to walk beside them. Diego nodded, his face softening. The fear didn't disappear, but it was tempered by the strength of knowing he had allies. For the first time in a long while, the future felt less like a daunting unknown and more like a fragile possibility. Keanu also took care to prepare Diego practically, explaining that reunification wouldn't be a single moment but a series of steps. There would be visits with their mother, meetings with caseworkers, and slow rebuilding of trust. It would take patience and courage. That night, Diego fell asleep clutching Rosa's photo, feeling the weight of uncertainty but buoyed by the promise of hope. Keanu stayed by the window, watching the stars appear one by one. He knew the road ahead was difficult, but every small step forward was a victory. He promised silently that no matter the challenges, he would remain steadfast in his support. For Diego, Rosa, and their mother, he would fight for a chance at healing and a future built on love. The day of the reunion arrived with a mix of anticipation and nervous energy. Keanu, Diego, and Rosa's mother had arranged to meet at a quiet community center, a neutral place where the children could feel safe. Keanu had spent the previous days preparing everyone for this moment, understanding how fragile and emotional it would be. As they entered the room, Diego clung tightly to Rosa's hand. The siblings exchanged a glance filled with silent reassurance before turning toward their mother. The woman waiting there wore the weary marks of hardship, but carried a look of genuine love and hope that lit up her face the moment she saw her children. Rosa hesitated, shying behind Diego's shoulder, her small frame trembling slightly. The years apart had been difficult, and trust would take time to rebuild. Diego stepped forward first, his protective instincts kicking in, but the sight of his mother's tearful smile softened his resolve. Their mother knelt slowly, opening her arms. "My babies," she whispered, voice thick with emotion. Diego and Rosa approached cautiously at first, then slowly allowed themselves to be enveloped in her embrace. The room filled with the sounds of quiet sobs and whispered reassurances, a family tentative but yearning for connection. Keanu stood nearby, watching with a heart full of hope. His presence was a steadying force, a reminder that this was the start of healing, not an end. The mother's commitment was clear, but the wounds left by years of separation were deep. They sat together afterward, sharing stories, tears, and laughter. It was a delicate dance, rediscovering bonds stretched thin but unbroken. Keanu gently guided the conversation, ensuring the children felt heard and safe. This reunion was more than a meeting. It was the beginning of a new chapter filled with promise, uncertainty, but above all, love. As the hours passed in the quiet room, the mother began to share her story, a journey marked by struggle, determination, and profound love for her children. She spoke candidly about the years she had spent battling addiction, the pain of separation from Diego and Rosa, and the hard work she had put into rebuilding her life. Her voice carried a mixture of remorse and hope. She described the long days of rehabilitation, the support she'd found in therapy groups, and the commitment she had made to herself and to her children to change her path. Diego listened with a seriousness beyond his years. Though young, he understood the gravity of her words and the courage it took to face such challenges. Rosa, sitting close to her brother, watched their mother with tentative eyes, still processing the flood of emotions stirring inside her. Keanu gently reminded the mother of the delicate nature of rebuilding trust. "You've taken an important first step," he said softly, "but Diego and Rosa will need time to see that this change is lasting. Patience and consistency are key." The mother nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I know. I want to show them every day that I'm here for them now, no matter what." Their conversation turned to practical matters. They discussed how the family would continue counseling together, focusing on healing past wounds and building new, healthy relationships. Plans were made for Rosa's schooling to ensure stability, and routines were outlined to provide structure and security for both children. Keanu made sure Diego and Rosa's voices were heard throughout. He encouraged them to express their fears and hopes openly, emphasizing that their feelings were valid. "It's okay to be unsure," Keanu said kindly, "and it's okay to ask for help whenever you need it." Throughout the meeting, Keanu's steady presence helped ease the tension in the room. He offered support not just as an advocate but as a compassionate friend, invested deeply in the family's success. As the conversation wound down, the atmosphere had shifted from uncertainty to cautious optimism. The path ahead was long, but this reunion had planted the vital seeds of hope and healing that would guide their journey forward. As the meeting drew to a close, the mother reached out and gently held both Diego's and Rosa's hands. The children, still tentative, responded with a cautious warmth that reflected the fragile but growing bond between them. Keanu stood nearby, sensing the significance of this moment, not just a reunion, but a fragile new beginning. He reminded them all that the journey to healing would require patience, understanding, and ongoing support, but that with love as their foundation, they could overcome the challenges ahead. The mother's eyes filled with gratitude as she turned to Keanu. "Thank you for everything," she said earnestly. "You've given us a chance I didn't think was possible." Keanu smiled gently. "You've done the hardest part, deciding to fight for your family. I'm here to help you through what comes next." Driving home later that evening, Keanu reflected quietly on the day's events. The reunion had been deeply emotional, a blend of joy, relief, and lingering pain. The scars of separation were still visible, but the family's story was shifting from one of loss to one of hope and possibility. He knew the coming days and months would require dedication, not just from Diego and Rosa's mother, but from everyone involved. There would be setbacks and difficult conversations, but also moments of healing and growing connection. Most importantly, Keanu understood that true family was about more than biology or circumstance. It was about love, commitment, and the willingness to show up, even when it was hard. As the night settled around him, Keanu felt a profound sense of purpose. This family, like so many others, had endured more than they should have. Now, with love guiding them and support surrounding them, they had a real chance to build the stable, nurturing home they all deserved. And Keanu knew he would be there every step of the way, standing as their unwavering ally in the fight for a brighter future. The first days in their new home were filled with a quiet mix of hope, uncertainty, and cautious excitement. Diego and Rosa were no strangers to upheaval, but this time felt different. The house, modest yet warm, stood as a beacon of possibility, an opportunity to finally begin healing the wounds that had been inflicted by years of separation and instability. Morning settled into a new rhythm, guided by gentle routines. Rosa's small hands carefully helped set the breakfast table, while Diego prepared a simple meal with the attentiveness of a big brother learning to balance responsibility and childhood. They ate together at a table that for the first time felt like a real family space, where the clatter of dishes was accompanied by laughter and quiet conversation. Keanu's presence was a comforting constant. He arrived early some days, stayed late others, but always in the background, allowing the family to find their footing while knowing support was nearby. He understood the fragile nature of this time, a period of slow rebuilding where patience and love were paramount. Counseling sessions became a regular part of the family's life. These were spaces where Diego and Rosa could voice fears they hadn't been able to express before, where their mother could share her own struggles and hopes for redemption, and where Keanu could witness firsthand the healing beginning to take root. Social services continued to provide practical support, helping arrange schooling for Rosa and connecting the family to community programs aimed at strengthening family bonds. Educational counselors helped Rosa catch up on lost time, while community volunteers offered after-school programs to create a sense of belonging. The challenges were real. Diego sometimes acted as a mediator between Rosa and their mother, navigating moments of tension with a maturity far beyond his years. Rosa's shyness made it difficult for her to open up, and she often retreated when emotions ran high. Their mother wrestled with guilt and the pressure to prove she could be the stable caregiver her children deserved. But despite the hurdles, progress was evident. Little moments, a shared smile, a hand held, a story told, began to weave the fragile threads of trust into a stronger fabric of family. Diego grappled with the new balance of his life. The weight of being Rosa's protector remained heavy on his young shoulders, even as he sought moments to simply be a child again. At school, he tried to blend in with classmates, but his heart always pulled him back home, to the family he was fighting to rebuild. Rosa's gradual blossoming was a testament to the safety and love surrounding her. She started to explore her curiosity again, asking questions, drawing pictures, and even laughing softly at jokes Diego told her. Her trust in her mother grew, though there were days when shadows of the past made her pull away. Keanu often took the siblings on small outings, mindful of the importance of creating joyful memories alongside the work of healing. Visits to the park, trips to the library, and simple walks in nature provided opportunities for the children to connect beyond the weight of their past. At home, their mother dedicated herself tirelessly to their care. She listened with patience, learned to recognize their emotional signals, and celebrated every small victory. She understood that rebuilding their bond would take time and that consistency was key. The siblings' relationship, the foundation of their strength, deepened with each passing day. Despite the years apart, the love between Diego and Rosa remained fierce and unwavering. Their shared experiences created a bond that even hardship could not sever. Keanu quietly observed this transformation. He saw how true strength was not measured by grand gestures, but by the daily acts of presence, patience, and love. He recognized the quiet heroism in their journey, one that often went unnoticed, but was profoundly powerful. Though scars from their past still lingered, the family was moving forward. The trauma was not forgotten, but it no longer defined their future. With every step, they grew stronger, more connected, and more hopeful. Weeks turned into months, and the family's life settled into a comforting routine. The house that once felt unfamiliar now resonated with the sounds of laughter, conversation, and the everyday rhythms of a family growing together. Diego and Rosa thrived with the steady love and support that surrounded them. School became a place of learning and friendship, while home was a refuge of safety and belonging. Keanu remained a quiet but unwavering presence. He did not seek attention or recognition, but showed his care through consistent support, attending school meetings, helping with homework, and simply being there when they needed a steady hand or listening ear. This new chapter was far from perfect. There were challenges, moments of doubt, and days filled with tears. But at its heart was resilience, hope, and an unbreakable bond that carried them through. Keanu knew his role was one of quiet guardian, supporting a family rebuilding from the ground up, reminding them that love and commitment could overcome even the deepest wounds. Together, they faced the future with courage, ready to build a life defined not by past hardships, but by the promise of healing and new beginnings. Keanu sat quietly in his living room, the gentle evening light casting soft shadows across the room. His birthday, a day he had planned to spend alone in peaceful solitude, had unfolded in a way he never could have imagined. The unexpected arrival of a small boy, drenched and shivering at his front gate, had transformed the day, and his perspective completely. That image of Diego stayed with him, a child so young yet so determined, searching tirelessly through rain and cold for someone he believed could help him. The sheer bravery and desperation of that moment carved itself deeply into Keanu's heart. It was a stark reminder of the unseen struggles happening all around him, far beyond the glare of cameras and the glamour of celebrity. Keanu reflected on how easily people overlook those in need, caught up in their own lives and distractions. But Diego's courage was a beacon of hope, a call to action that challenged Keanu to consider what true kindness meant. He thought about the power of kindness, not the superficial gestures often displayed for public approval, but genuine, courageous compassion, the kind of kindness that risks discomfort and requires presence, empathy, and action. The day's events underscored a truth Keanu had come to embrace more fully over the years: that influence and resources are only as meaningful as the difference they make in real lives. It was not about fame or fortune. It was about using whatever gifts one had to uplift those who might otherwise be forgotten. This birthday, intended as a retreat from the world, had instead become a powerful lesson in responsibility and love. It had reminded Keanu that true fulfillment comes not from accolades, but from the courage to stand beside those who need it most. As Keanu reflected on the weeks since Diego first appeared at his gate, he found himself deeply moved by the layers of complexity in the lives of children like Diego and Rosa. Their story was one of heartbreak, resilience, and an unyielding bond, but it was also a story that echoed across countless families hidden in the margins of society. He thought about the tireless work involved, countless phone calls to social workers, arranging counseling sessions, coordinating with legal representatives, and the ongoing search for stability in the midst of uncertainty. These acts, though unseen by the public eye, were vital lifelines for Diego and Rosa. Keanu realized that many people live with hardships so profound they can be invisible to the outside world. It was a humbling truth how easily society can overlook the struggles of its most vulnerable members while caught up in its own rush and distraction. But Diego's courage and love had rekindled a powerful lesson in Keanu's heart. True kindness requires more than sympathy. It demands presence, patience, and action. It meant showing up when it's hard, listening deeply without judgment, and investing time and energy into real change. He thought about how fleeting fame and fortune could be, but the impact of genuine human connection was timeless. The smallest acts of compassion, sustained over time, could alter the course of lives, rebuild families, and restore hope. Keanu knew that the road ahead for Diego, Rosa, and their mother would be challenging. Healing wounds left by years of separation and trauma wasn't simple or quick. Trust needed to be rebuilt, one moment at a time. The family would face setbacks and fears, but with the right support and love, they could forge a new path together. This experience had transformed Keanu's view of his role in the world. It was no longer enough to be a passive donor or a distant supporter. True influence meant stepping into the hard spaces, committing to the messy work of healing and advocacy. Diego's quiet bravery reminded Keanu that every person, no matter how small, could inspire change. Sometimes, the greatest lessons come from those we least expect. Keanu vowed silently to continue this mission, not for accolades, but because the need was real and the reward was in the lives touched and healed. As the night deepened and the house grew quiet, Keanu sat in contemplation. The birthday that began with a desire for solitude had evolved into a powerful awakening, one that reshaped how he understood kindness, responsibility, and purpose. He recognized that the most profound fulfillment in life did not come from public recognition or professional success. It came from the willingness to stand beside those who are vulnerable, to offer care without expectation, and to use whatever means one has to make a meaningful difference. Diego's story, from desperate searching to tentative reunion, was a testament to the strength of human spirit and the healing power of compassion. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope could take root when nurtured by genuine love. Keanu understood that true change required more than quick fixes or superficial charity. It demanded patience, consistent effort, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths about inequality and loss. His experience with Diego and Rosa had shown him the importance of community, the networks of people who come together to support healing and growth. He saw his role as part of this community, a link in the chain of care that could help transform lives. This birthday had become far more than a personal milestone. It was a call to action, a moment that crystallized his commitment to using his influence for good, not just in the grand gestures, but in the quiet, steady acts of service. Keanu knew the journey ahead would be long, filled with challenges and uncertainties, but he also knew that with love and persistence, healing was possible. As he prepared to face the coming days, Keanu felt a renewed sense of purpose. The birthday guest who had arrived unexpectedly had changed everything. For Diego, Rosa, their mother, and for him. This was just the beginning of a mission to bring light to lives too often overshadowed by hardship, proving that even one person's kindness could spark hope and change the world. Keanu's story is a powerful testament to the enduring strength of empathy and the profound impact one individual's compassion can have on the lives of others. It reveals a truth often forgotten in a world obsessed with fame, success, and material wealth, that true fulfillment lies in the ability to see beyond ourselves and extend kindness to those who need it most. Diego and Rosa's experience is not just a single family's journey, but a reflection of countless children and families caught in systems that can be cold, complicated, and unforgiving. Their story shines a light on the human faces behind statistics and news reports, faces that often go unseen and unheard. This video challenges viewers to reconsider what it means to be truly influential. It asks us to reflect on the power we all hold, not in our possessions or status, but in our capacity to care, to show up, and to act with courage. Keanu's choice to welcome Diego on his birthday, to listen and then to commit his time and resources, exemplifies the kind of leadership that changes lives quietly but profoundly. The message is clear. Real change doesn't always come from grand gestures or headlines. It comes from the small, consistent acts of love that build trust and restore hope. It comes from acknowledging our shared humanity and standing in solidarity with those who struggle. Through this story, viewers are invited to look inward and ask themselves how they can contribute to making the world a kinder, more supportive place. The call is to move beyond passive sympathy toward active compassion, to be a part of the solution in tangible, meaningful ways. Empathy requires presence. It means truly seeing another person's pain and choosing to be a source of comfort and strength. It means standing with those who are vulnerable and often overlooked, honoring their dignity and worth. Family, the foundation of love, security, and identity, is central to this story's moral. Diego and Rosa's bond illustrates the irreplaceable importance of connection, especially for children navigating trauma and instability. Separation from loved ones can fracture a child's sense of safety and belonging, making healing a delicate and ongoing process. Keanu's commitment to supporting this family emphasizes that protecting these bonds is a responsibility we all share. His humble approach highlights an essential truth. Heroism often happens quietly, without fanfare. It is the patient, consistent dedication to those in need that builds the strongest foundations for change. This story asks viewers to consider the families and children in their own communities, those who may be struggling with separation, loss, or hardship. It reminds us that compassion is not limited by geography or circumstance. The moral encourages a shift in perspective, from seeing charity as an occasional act to understanding it as a lifelong commitment to justice and care. It invites everyone to become guardians of hope, advocates for vulnerable families, and champions of human dignity. There is power in everyday kindness. Volunteering time at shelters, mentoring a child, donating resources, or simply offering a listening ear. These acts ripple outward, creating networks of support that can change lives. Keanu's story makes clear that influence is not just about wealth or public recognition. True influence arises from a heart willing to engage deeply and to make sacrifices for the well-being of others. Ultimately, this narrative affirms that our common humanity binds us, and through empathy and action, we can build communities where no one feels forgotten or alone. As the story neared its close, Keanu's thoughts turned toward the power of a single moment, a moment that rippled far beyond one birthday or one family's struggle. Diego's desperate journey through rain and fear, and the way their paths had crossed, became a symbol of hope. It was a powerful reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can create waves of change that touch many lives. This story calls on viewers to look deeply within themselves, to recognize the capacity they each hold to make a difference. It's not about grand gestures or public recognition. It's about the willingness to step forward when it matters most, to be a steady hand, a compassionate heart, and a voice for those who cannot speak for themselves. Keanu's example teaches us that true impact is often found in quiet, unseen moments. The choice to open a door, to listen patiently, and to offer support with humility and love can transform despair into hope. It's these acts that rebuild families, restore dignity, and kindle the light of possibility in even the darkest times. This call to action is an invitation to become part of a greater movement, a community of people who refuse to turn away from pain and injustice. It urges viewers to engage actively in their neighborhoods, to support local programs, to advocate for children and families in crisis, and to nurture bonds that strengthen the fabric of society. The story reminds us all that no one is too small or powerless to make a difference. Like Diego's courage and Keanu's compassion, every act of love matters. It asks us to remember that we are interconnected, and by lifting each other up, we create a world that is kinder, safer, and more just. As Keanu reflects on this birthday unlike any other, he understands that the greatest gift is not the absence of noise or obligation, but the presence of meaningful connection that challenges us to care, to act, and to build a future where every child feels safe and loved. Through this story, viewers are encouraged to find their own way to help, to be the unexpected guest who changes a life. Because in the end, it is these shared moments of kindness and courage that define our humanity and create the legacy we leave behind. As the first light of morning gently filtered through the curtains, Keanu Reeves found himself lost in thought. The quiet that surrounded him was a stark contrast to the whirlwind of emotions and events that had unfolded over the past few days. What had begun as a solitary birthday, meant for reflection and peace, had transformed into a profound journey of connection, compassion, and hope. Sitting by the window, Keanu contemplated the powerful truth at the heart of this story, that love, in its purest form, has the ability to heal even the deepest wounds. Diego and Rosa's story was not just about separation and struggle, it was about resilience, the unbreakable bond of family, and the courage to seek a better future despite overwhelming odds. Keanu thought about the countless families like Diego's, families living in the shadows, their stories unheard and their struggles unseen by the wider world. This realization filled him with a renewed sense of purpose. He understood that true heroism is often quiet and unrecognized. It doesn't demand attention or applause. Instead, it is found in the steady, unwavering presence of those who choose to stand with the vulnerable, who choose to act with empathy and patience. This story was a powerful reminder that the greatest acts of kindness often come without fanfare. A warm meal, a gentle word, a hand offered in support. These small gestures hold immense power. They create ripples that extend far beyond the moment, building bridges of trust and hope in places where despair once lived. Keanu's birthday guest had changed everything. Not only his day, but his outlook on life. The experience had deepened his understanding that the true measure of success is not wealth or fame, but the difference one makes in the lives of others. As Keanu continued his reflection, he realized that community is much more than just a group of people living near one another. It is a web of relationships built on trust, empathy, and mutual support. The story of Diego and Rosa revealed how fragile these connections can be, especially when life's hardships threaten to tear families apart. Yet, it also showed how powerful the act of coming together can be in rebuilding those bonds. Keanu thought about how many people in society feel isolated, misunderstood, or forgotten. Often, these are the very individuals who most desperately need a helping hand, but are overlooked or dismissed. This story urges us all to challenge those tendencies, to open our eyes and hearts to the struggles of others, and to find ways to engage that go beyond surface-level charity. He understood now that real compassion requires sustained effort. It's not enough to offer one-time help or write a check. True change involves showing up repeatedly, investing time and emotional energy, and committing to the long journey of healing and support. It means being willing to witness the pain, the setbacks, and the slow progress, and never turning away. This deeper level of commitment transforms how communities function. It turns strangers into neighbors, and neighbors into a support system that catches those who might otherwise fall through the cracks. Keanu's example illustrated that anyone, no matter their background, status, or resources, can be part of this vital work. By sharing his story, Keanu invites viewers to see their own capacity for kindness. It could be volunteering at a shelter, mentoring a child, advocating for policy changes, or simply being present for a friend in need. Each act contributes to a tapestry of care that strengthens the entire community. The narrative also highlights the importance of respect and dignity in all acts of service. Helping others means honoring their stories and recognizing their worth as human beings. It requires listening without judgment and offering support that empowers rather than diminishes. Keanu's journey reminds us that the impact of compassion is not always immediately visible. Sometimes the greatest transformations happen quietly, away from public attention. Yet their effects ripple outward, creating hope and healing in ways that shape lives and communities for generations. As the video moved toward its closing moments, the message became clear and inspiring. Kindness has the power to change the world, one life at a time. Keanu's experience with Diego and Rosa is a shining example of how quiet courage and unwavering compassion can create a future filled with possibility. It is a call for viewers to become active participants in this movement, to be the light in someone else's darkness. The story urges us all to look beyond fame, fortune, and personal convenience, and to invest in the lives of those who need us most. It reminds us that the true measure of our humanity lies in our willingness to care, to act, and to stand beside others through their struggles. Keanu's quiet heroism is a model for compassionate action that anyone can emulate. It shows that meaningful change starts with the choice to be present, to listen deeply, to offer support without expectation, and to persist even when the path is difficult. The invitation to viewers is simple but profound. Join this movement of kindness. Look for ways to support families, children, and neighbors who feel forgotten or alone. Through small, steady acts of love, we can build a world where every person feels valued and protected. In the end, it is our shared humanity that unites us. Through empathy, commitment, and compassion, we can create a future where no one's story is left unheard, and where hope thrives. Keanu's birthday story is not just a moment in time. It is a beacon, lighting the way for all of us to make a lasting difference.